Florida home prices could spike 9% overnight under Ron DeSantis' plan to eliminate property taxes. That's a $200 billion to $250 billion wealth transfer to current homeowners, and a financial disaster for everyone else. DeSantis has been pushing the plan for months, promising true property ownership without government rent. It sounds like the ultimate tax cut. No more annual bills. More money in your pocket. The American dream fully realized. But a new economic analysis reveals the brutal truth. While existing homeowners celebrate massive windfalls, first-time buyers would face prices jumping $28,000 to $36,000 higher on a normal home. Renters would get crushed with higher costs as landlords pass along increased tax burdens. And economists are warning of a black swan event that could simultaneously crash Florida's housing market and state budget when the next recession hits. Why would eliminating taxes make homes more expensive? How would Florida fund schools and infrastructure? And what happens when a state puts all its revenue eggs in one basket just as the economy turns south? The answer reveals why this tax cut could become Florida's biggest economic mistake. The core argument is simple. Property taxes force homeowners to essentially pay rent to the government forever. Even after you pay off your mortgage, you're still writing checks to local tax collectors every year. Miss those payments and the government can seize your property. That's not true ownership, it's perpetual dependence. The pitch resonates with Florida homeowners who've watched their tax bills climb alongside soaring property values and insurance premiums. Property taxes represent another significant expense in an already strained household budget. The promise of elimination feels like genuine relief. But here's where basic economics destroys the fantasy. Realtor.com's economic research team just released an analysis examining what would actually happen if Florida eliminated property taxes on owner-occupied homes. The findings are stark. Property values across the state would immediately jump by approximately 7% to 9%. The reason comes down to something economists call capitalization. When you buy a house, you're paying for both the structure and land. You're factoring in decades of future carrying costs, maintenance, insurance, utilities, and taxes. Those expected expenses reduce what buyers are willing to pay today. Remove property taxes from the equation, and suddenly the total cost of ownership drops significantly. Buyers can afford to pay more upfront because they're saving thousands annually on taxes. That increased buying power doesn't create more housing supply. It just drives prices higher as buyers compete with larger budgets. A $400,000 home becomes $428,000 to $436,000 overnight. That extra $28,000 to $36,000 comes directly out of the pockets of first-time buyers who don't have that money sitting around. Current homeowners win immediately. Anyone who already owns a Florida home would see their property value spike without lifting a finger. It's an instant windfall worth hundreds of billions of dollars collectively across the state. First-time buyers lose catastrophically. Anyone trying to break into home ownership would face prices that just jumped 7% to 9% higher. Senior economist Joel Berner, who conducted the analysis, confirms the measure would disproportionately benefit wealthy Floridians at the expense of those who don't own homes. Florida's housing affordability is already in crisis mode. Home values in the state are up 42% compared to October 2019, vastly outpacing income growth. In October 2025, the median listing price sat at $425,000. Adding another 7% to 9% on top would price out thousands of potential homeowners completely. But the pain doesn't stop with aspiring buyers. Renters face an even grimmer scenario. DeSantis' proposal doesn't eliminate property taxes on rental properties, only on owner-occupied homes. Landlords would still pay property taxes on their rental units. Since rental properties wouldn't receive the tax break, they'd face higher relative tax burdens as the state scrambles to replace lost revenue. Landlords don't absorb increased costs. They pass them to tenants through higher rents. Renters would effectively subsidize homeowners' tax elimination through their own increased housing costs. It's a regressive tax structure that punishes those least able to afford it. The revenue replacement problem is massive. DeSantis claims the lost income from homestead property taxes could be replaced through higher taxes on retail sales, corporate income, second homes, vacation rentals, and commercial properties. The math might work on paper, but the execution creates serious vulnerabilities. Currently, 7 different constitutional amendments related to property tax reform are circulating in the Florida legislature. Some advocate for eliminating all non-school property taxes on homeowners while maintaining school-related taxes. Others push for total elimination. School taxes account for roughly 35% of all property taxes in Florida. If the state only eliminated non-school property taxes, property values would still jump by 4% to 5.5%, representing a $110 billion to $150 billion increase in total value of owner-occupied housing stock. DeSantis has criticized the competing proposals, arguing that multiple conflicting amendments create voter confusion. Partial measures don't satisfy his vision of true property ownership. The political calculation is transparent. Homeowners represent a powerful voting bloc in Florida. Promising to eliminate their property taxes is politically popular, even if the economic consequences are disastrous. Current homeowners see the immediate benefit: no more tax bills. Without understanding the broader implications, critics warn that eliminating homestead property taxes would devastate funding for Florida's schools, local infrastructure, and emergency services. Property taxes fund essential government services at the local level: public schools, police and fire departments, road maintenance, and water systems. Shifting that revenue burden elsewhere creates risks that those services deteriorate or that other taxes skyrocket to compensate. Florida already has no state income tax. Eliminating property taxes on homesteads would narrow the tax base even further, concentrating revenue dependence on a smaller pool of sources. That creates dangerous fragility in the state's fiscal structure. Ken Johnson, a housing economist at the University of Mississippi, believes eliminating property taxes would boost Florida's struggling housing market in the short term. Values would rise. Current homeowners would feel wealthier. The political win would be immediate and visible. But Johnson sees catastrophic risks lurking just beyond the initial celebration. He's warning of what he calls a black swan event, a scenario where Florida faces a combined budget crisis and housing market collapse simultaneously if a national recession hits. Here's how the disaster unfolds. Florida has no state income tax. If property taxes on homesteads disappear, the state's revenue base narrows dramatically. Florida would be putting all its fiscal eggs in one basket, relying heavily on sales taxes, corporate taxes, and property taxes from second homes and commercial properties. That works fine during prosperous times. Tourism is strong, retail sales are healthy, second homeowners keep paying their bills. The revenue flows in, and government services continue functioning. But recessions change everything. When the national economy contracts, discretionary spending evaporates first. Tourism to Florida drops. Retail sales decline. Corporate profits shrink. And here's the critical vulnerability: second homeowners start selling. Florida's housing stock includes roughly 10% vacation homes, a massive concentration compared to most states. Those properties wouldn't be exempt from property taxes under DeSantis's proposal. When recession hits and owners face financial pressure, many would dump those second homes onto the market to cut expenses and raise cash. The result is a supply glut, thousands of vacation homes flooding the market simultaneously. Prices start falling as desperate sellers compete. Home values drop across the board, including the primary residences that were supposed to benefit from tax elimination. Now the black swan reveals itself fully. Real estate prices are crashing. Tourism dollars are drying up. Tax revenue from out-of-state homeowners with short-term rentals or second homes is collapsing. Sales tax collections are plummeting. Corporate tax revenue is falling. Florida's budget implodes at the exact moment when residents need government services most. Schools face massive cuts. Infrastructure projects halt. Emergency services strain under reduced funding. The state has no income tax to fall back on. Property taxes on homesteads are gone. The remaining revenue sources are all declining simultaneously. Johnson's assessment is stark. A major U.S. recession could crash Florida housing and dry up the Florida budget at the same time. It's a double catastrophe with no easy escape route. The timing of such a scenario depends entirely on when the national economy next takes a sharp downturn. That could be years away. But the structural vulnerability would be locked in the moment voters approve the constitutional amendment. Florida would be exposed, with no quick way to reverse course if conditions deteriorate. The irony is brutal. A policy designed to help homeowners could ultimately devastate their property values when the economy turns. The tax relief they celebrated would become worthless as their home equity evaporates and their communities struggle with underfunded services. The wealth transfer dynamics are equally problematic. Current homeowners, disproportionately older, wealthier, and white, would capture the immediate $200 billion to $250 billion windfall. Young families, renters, minorities, and anyone not currently owning property would bear the costs through higher home prices and increased rents. It's generational wealth extraction disguised as tax relief. Older homeowners cash out, while younger generations pay inflated prices to enter the market they're being priced out of. Florida home values have already softened over the past several years. Prices in October 2025 were down about 3% compared to October 2022. The market has been correcting after the pandemic-era boom pushed values to unsustainable levels.